Hi everyone, my name is Cody Holmes, and this will be my assignment for Module 15, our case study of Truman Elementary School. So, for Category 1, what do you know? Well, I know that Truman Elementary has grades pre-K through 8, 15% qualify for free and reduced lunch, 5% speak a language other than English. And the big part that has to do with this case study is the test scores of students. Students at Truman do worse in reading than math. They lose ground as a group moving through the school, and they lose ground from grade to grade. And also a major point to this case study is that parents have commented negatively on the reading instruction. And then this led me, as the principal, to address the concerns. Also, what do I know? Well, I asked the district's reading supervisor to go into classrooms and take notes. The teacher noticed that they were using a basal program for about an hour a day, mostly whole group, not really any differentiation. Entire class received the same skill instruction regardless of how they were performing. Most lessons were not direct, and they didn't include many strategies of what students could do while reading. So the supervisor suggested a balanced literacy approach, more time for reading instruction, and a bigger focus on the needs of the individual students in class. She thought instruction should be flexible, and that teachers should use diagnostic information to individualize instruction. Also, what do I know? Well, there's a grant opportunity available, but it's based on poverty and achievement history. Awards will go to those schools that have conducted analysis of student achievement and instructional practices and told how what they want to do will reach the goals that they want to achieve. Applicants also have to understand research-based programs and make a commitment to using those, and the superintendent has to give their signature. Now, what do I need to know? Well, I need to know the specific perception data of parents, teachers, and students. I need to know if our poverty levels and achievement history meet the requirements for the grant. I need to know of some research-based reading curriculums, and I would like our data to be easier to understand. So the problems. Well, based on the information, our students are not performing well on reading tests. Another problem is our parents' negative perception of reading instruction. Our final problem is our teachers' abilities and maybe just their knowledge to teach using a balanced literacy approach. So, Category 2. I have 9 major steps. So these are to collect perception data and go to the next PTO meeting, to better aggregate assessment data so it's easier to understand, see if we met the grant requirements, research best practices, meet with teachers, to implement curriculum, to compare data, and then to collect more perception data. So some strategies. First, I need to collect perception data. And I could do this by going to the PTO meeting, talking with parents, and then giving them these surveys. I then need to send surveys to my teachers because I'd like to get their feelings on what they're doing in their classrooms, the curriculum they are using now, if they think they're using best reading practices, various things. And then I could even survey students to get data on how they feel about instruction. Now, I'd also like to better aggregate the data that was provided. To me, it seemed a little confusing, and I would like to make that easier to understand for the community, teachers, and myself. Plan of action. So, in the meantime, I would need to call the federal projects director to see if our poverty level and achievement history meets the requirements for the grant. And if we don't meet the requirements, then there's no point of going forward with the grant, and we need to come up with a different strategy. Now, if we did meet the requirements, I and our reading supervisor could begin to research research-based reading curriculums that could be bought with the grant money. I'd also need to research professionally based professional development for our teachers to learn some best practices. Now, if we didn't meet the requirements, I would still need to research what a balanced reading curriculum is, and we could take notes of strategies to implement. And then I could also look up some professional development ideas. More plan of action. Once I've collected the perceptions of teachers, aggregated the data, and researched curriculum, I could host a meeting. I could present my findings of all the perceptions of the teachers, parents, and students. We could celebrate successes and find areas of growth. I could then tell my teachers about the grant and ask if any of the teachers have knowledge of any research-based curriculums or strategies. We could then come up with a plan of action together. I would then present all of our findings to the superintendent for approval. So if we were to qualify any interested teachers, the supervisor and myself can fill out the grant. If accepted, we would purchase our decided upon curriculum. We would also look at schedule changes to increase the amount of time teachers are teaching reading. And then after a year or a period of time, we could compare results to see if this has worked or not. And then we could conduct more perception surveys to see if views have changed. Now, if we didn't qualify, we could still research a balanced literacy approach. We could have meetings where we would decide on strategies and professional development opportunities. We could still look at schedule changes, compare testing results, and still conduct more perception surveys. Category 3. Now, what's best for the students? Using best practices are, of course, best for students, and research-based curriculums provide studies that back up their uses. A balanced literacy approach is shown to support students in all aspects of reading, and having teachers that use best practices will support students. Having teachers that are supported creates better morale, which makes for a better teacher, which makes for more supported students. And taking student perception data is important. It makes them feel heard, and gathering parent perception data will help improve parents' perceptions, and then they can pass on those positive perceptions to their own kids, our students. Here are 3 facts from the case. So the reading supervisor stated that classroom reading instruction needed to focus on all the balanced elements of reading. So with an updated, balanced, research-based curriculum, this could be accomplished. Now, the supervisor also stated that a comprehensive professional development program is needed, and support will need to take place. Now, teachers will benefit from professional development that supports them in becoming a better teacher. And finally, parents commented negatively on the views of the school's reading instruction. By working to improve these parent perceptions with everything that we're trying to do, we're working to promote a positive view of school for parents to pass down to their children. Category 4. What I was thinking about how this related to what we're currently going through at my own school. We're getting a brand new reading curriculum for grades K-5, and this is because we want a balanced literacy approach, and we wanted to see if our test scores improve or not. While I was working through this, I was thinking about how I could use some of these steps in real life. Now, I was valuing how this case study was relating to helping students. Any school's major goal should be how to support students to the best of its ability by looking at assessment data, collecting perceptions, and implementing resource. You're working towards helping students, the ultimate goal. Now, I was feeling how an actual principal must feel when having to deal with this sort of issue. When you have parents many parents that are coming in with negative views of the school. It's never a good thing. And it's hard to change this. What I feel a good principal would do would be to change, to try and change, and with the right analysis, plans, and consideration of teachers, students, and parents, it could be possible. Now, there are some unresolved issues. Because this case study is hypothetical, and I only have the information I was provided, I will not know if we get accepted for the grant or not. Now, I provided the two different options of whether we get accepted or not, but I feel it would be much harder to successfully implement a balanced literacy approach without having sufficient funds. Now, if we had to implement without using a full research-based curriculum, would things go back to how they were? Would we have enough change to increase achievement? If we would not get the funds for professional development, would teachers change their instruction methods and viewpoints? And if we were to get the grant approved and new curriculum purchased and our scores still didn't go up, what would we need to do next? Final category 5. Communicate with the community. Now, I received data that showed that parents were not happy. So I showed my concern by speaking at the PTO meeting. I gathered perception data. I reported this data, made a plan, implemented that plan, and then I later sent out new surveys to gather perception data that I could compare and contrast with. Positive change. Our school policy is to provide the best possible education to our students. By not implementing best practices in a balanced literacy approach, we were not doing this. Now, I had the opportunity to use a grant that's regulated by the State Department of Education. Through this opportunity, we were able to purchase a balanced literacy curriculum, and this impacted all student groups. Also, professional development would help my teachers learn the curriculum while applying best practices, and of course this would be very beneficial to all student groups also. Finally, ongoing dialogue. I was able to speak with the State Department of Education, and they provided us with the grant. I was able to speak with parents, and they were able to give me their perceptions. I was able to hold meetings with the teachers. They were able to give me their perceptions. I was able to give student surveys, and this influenced our drive to teach using best practices. I thank you all for listening to my Module 15 case study.